I actually meant to start today's show by doing like a cold open where we have a moment of solidarity. And so we are going to have a really brief moment of solidarity here because, as some people have noted in the comments, we have lost an absolute legend today. It's not a legend in Philadelphia sports. We've lost a legend in life today. And so on that, we are going to really quickly just give a moment to a man who has given very many of us, especially if you're a 90s kid, gave us a lot of great memories over the years as we celebrate a man who has sadly passed away. Ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Norris is no longer with us. Bonafide stud. I mean, YouTube can strike me down if they want. All right? If YouTube really wants to go after me for a tribute to a great man, they can. But I'll tell you what, then that's on you, YouTube. I don't know if there's anything that quite touches the soul as much as the Walker, Texas Ranger intro, but Chuck Norris has passed away. Now, some would argue that death came for Chuck Norris. I think Chuck Norris came for death. I would actually not be surprised. The Grim Reaper right now is about to hand over the scythe to Chuck Norris, but he doesn't need it. He's got nunchucks. Rest in peace to an all-time legend. Chuck Norris, the jokes wrote themselves. Yesterday, when the news came out that he was hospitalized in Hawaii, the comments were absolutely incredible. And it felt like going back like 15 years, going back like even 10 years of the internet. I'm actually going to see really quickly if I could find the TMZ story from Chuck Norris yesterday, because, I mean, the comments on it were absolutely incredible. And again, we are not making light of the fact that the man is gone. We are trying to do essentially what is a celebration of life for Chuck Norris. But like, here are some of the comments that came out. When Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, he already had 3 missed calls from Chuck Norris. Here, let's put Chuck Norris's face up here on the screen. All right, because it's not as impactful if he's not here. Let's just take a moment here. All right, here we go. Here's Chuck Norris, stud, bonafide stud. The only people who I think have ever been able to pull off the cowboy hat like that, Chuck Norris, good old JR, Jim Ross. I think they're the only two who have ever pulled off the hat with that kind of style. All right, so here we go. Here are some Chuck Norris comments when it was announced that he was in pretty rough shape. When Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, he already had 3 missed calls from Chuck Norris. Sources say the hospital is expected to make a full recovery. A medical emergency has been hospitalized after a run-in with Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris has been hospitalized. No word yet on the condition of the hospital. Chuck Norris once told a woman to calm down, and she did. That's misogynistic. All right. Chuck Norris doesn't wear a watch. He decides what time it is. Chuck Norris counted to infinity twice. Chuck Norris can kill 2 stones with 1 bird. Chuck Norris can divide by 0. Chuck Norris got bit by a cobra. The cobra died. When Chuck Norris does push-ups, he isn't lifting himself up. He's pushing the earth down. Death once had a near Chuck experience. So, there you go. I'm actually really sad. I'm not like devastated, right? He was, I believe, 86 years old. So I feel like when you get to a certain age, you go, it's sad, but it's not tragic, right? Chuck Norris, older guy, 86, ripe old age, right? I don't know what the appropriate age to say is these days that you're like, oh, that you lived a good full life. I would make an argument that Chuck Norris probably lived quite the full life, revered by a lot of people. I will never forget. Let me see if I can find this really quickly because it's one of my favorite Chuck Norris related references that has ever come to pass in any TV show or any movie. Hold on, I got this. If it's available on a video platform, I'm gonna find it. All right, here we go. Now I got it. We're good. All right, I've got it. Oh, no, it's translated. No, it's translated into Russian. That's not what I need. I'll see if I can find it for later. I'm actually kind of upset that it's not there. All right, it's fine. It's fine. We'll find it eventually. Anyway, you can drop your favorite Chuck Norris thing, your favorite Chuck Norris memory in the comments. and we'll try to get to it a little bit later on. Let's see. I've got some people here. Catholic Nono says, Chuck Norris finally met something he couldn't beat. He did. He beat death. MJ Bruno says, Chuck Norris loved those old Chuck Norris jokes. Let's see. Oh, we got people dropping in. Return of the Dragon, Invasion USA was a Norris classic. I hope he got one last good workout on his total gym before he kicked open the gates of heaven. That's actually the real question, right? Like, when he got to the gates, did they say, of course you get to come in? Let me see if I can find this. I think this is it. I think I found it. Yeah, here we go. This is the one that I wanted to get to. This might be my favorite thing that's happened. And if you're a 90s kid and you remember the movies that we grew up on, like in the early 2000s, this one will 100% come to mind. Whenever I think of Chuck Norris.
Fucking Chuck Norris.
Dodgeball. Great movie. They'd never make that movie nowadays, but Dodgeball, great movie. Landra says, a life well lived. Norris was a beauty. All right. Anyway. Thoughts? Prayers to the Norris family. It's really sad, but the man lived a very full life. And it sounds like the statement that the family put out is that he was surrounded by his loved ones. And I think we can all probably agree you would much rather, if you had the opportunity, you would much rather be surrounded by those that you love and care about in your final moments. So, I don't know if there's ever a great way to go out, if there's ever a great way to leave this earth, but I'd argue that being surrounded by those you love and care about the most is probably a pretty decent way to go. So, rest in peace to Chuck Norris. But then again, I'm still not convinced. I'm still not convinced that Chuck Norris is not going to come right back through that door. Not this door. He can't come through this door. I hope he doesn't come through. He'd roundhouse kick his way through this door. But we do wish his family and friends all the best. All right, let's get into the Philly sports talk because that's what we have to do at this point. There is a lot to get into today. We have some Phillies stuff to discuss, and I actually pushed the start of the show back because Fighting Words, I think they're still doing an episode. I thought I saw like 20 minutes ago, they were talking about how they were going to be doing a show. They were like, and they were talking about wrapping up. So I was like, all right, I'll push the start of my show back. Real team player right here as the founder of Joy Media. I was like, I'll push this thing back. Let those guys have their moment to go out and have some fun, you know? And what happened? They're still going. Sanfilippo's still talking. So we're going to dive into the Phillies in a little bit. We got a couple of Eagles things to discuss. Namely, Lane Johnson flamed WIP. So I do want to get to that. We have a couple of other things to discuss around the Eagles. Andy Dalton coming to town. There's this belief out there. It's starting to go around that A.J. Brown has already been traded. Effectively has been traded. There's already been a trade negotiated between the Eagles and the Patriots that's going to go down after June 1st. Remember, the dead cap hit goes from $40 million to $20 million if they wait until after June 1st. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But we also have to have a conversation about your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers, because, guys, good God. Flyers won again on the road. The other night on Snow the Goalie Radio, we were talking about the fact that, like, if the Flyers are going to try somehow to make the playoffs, you need to get at least 5 points. Bundy made the argument on the radio that we need to see the Flyers get 6 points in order for it to actually matter. And so I feel like now is an appropriate time. We did this, I believe it was last Friday. We actually did a deep dive into what does this scenario look like for the Flyers if you're a playoff person. What does the scenario look like if you are a tank person? And I got to be honest with you, right now, it is feeling more and more like the Flyers are more likely to be a team that makes the playoffs than finds itself high in the lottery. I'm like very convinced that at least as of right now, is sort of where I've landed. at this current moment. So let's go first to where the playoff standings are in the Eastern Conference. We're going to take a goosey gander at this because I think that among all of the many things going on right now in Philadelphia, this is the one that's not the most frustrating, but it's certainly something that I can't fully wrap my head around yet. I'm still kind of shocked that we're in a scenario where as the Flyers are 2 games done on a 3-game road trip out west, they find themselves actually in a pretty not horrible spot. So as you can see right here, here's the entire Eastern Conference, right? Columbus Blue Jackets are 3rd in the Metropolitan. We talked about the fact that it felt like the Islanders could maybe drop out. We thought that the Penguins could maybe drop out. Columbus has a game in hand on the Islanders. They're level on points. The Islanders have 3 more regulation wins. But right now, you're not going to call it a tiebreaker, but the reason that Columbus is in currently is because they have a game in hand on the Islanders. So, where are the Flyers at this morning? They're 5 points back of Columbus in the Metropolitan. They are 6 points back of the Red Wings for the second wildcard spot. And you might say to yourself, well, Russ, although I don't know why you would say to yourself, Russ, you would say to me, you'd say, well, Russ, but we'll just let it go. Here's the thing that we have to keep in mind, all right? The Flyers have 3 games remaining this season against the godforsaken Detroit Red Wings, which means that there's still a legitimate chance of catching those guys. But then you also have to take a look at the other teams that they're also trying to chase down. Now, Pittsburgh is by no means in a spot where they have sure footing, right? We'll take a look at strength of schedule here in a little bit. But this is quite the perplexing scenario if you're a Flyers fan. So Pittsburgh, 84 points. Columbus, 83 points. The Islanders, 83 points. Senators are only 1 point ahead of you. Just based on the way that things have been going, I would tend to think that jumping over Ottawa is a relatively simple path, right? Ottawa, and we're going to take a look at the strength of schedule here in a second, but Ottawa has a weaker strength of schedule than the Flyers do, but it's not by a boatload, all right? So you know that if you're going to try to chase down these teams, you have to kind of keep in mind where they're at and who they still have to play. The Islanders, who you're trying to chase, have the second toughest strength of schedule remaining in the entire league, also in the Eastern Conference. Columbus has the 3rd toughest schedule of any Eastern Conference team, and actually in the league overall. The Flyers have the 4th toughest strength of schedule remaining. 5th. 5th toughest strength of schedule remaining. So in the East, it goes Boston, Islanders, Columbus, Montreal, Flyers. Below them are Detroit and Pittsburgh, and then Ottawa. So we'll flip over to this now. This is your strength of schedule. But take a goosey gander at who your Philadelphia Flyers still have to play. On the tough side of things, if you want to call it the tough side, you have Columbus, 1 more game. That'll be the first game back at Xfinity Mobile Arena. Flyers Columbus. Now, if you want to make a case that there's a must-win game, that is a must-win game. If you are trying to make the playoffs, you need to make that a 4-point swing. And then you have 3 games against Detroit. 3 against Detroit. That's a potential 6 points worth of points. 6 between you and Detroit. Now, they also do have Dallas. That is a very tough game. Carolina is a really tough game. Montreal could very well be a tough game. Keep in mind, Montreal also only has 84 points right now. That is good for 3rd in the Atlantic. They also have Boston and Detroit breathing down their neck. So it's going to be a must-win scenario for Montreal as well. So all of these games, right? Whether it's, depending on how you want to look at it, right? Boston has something to play for. Detroit has something to play for. Columbus has something to play for. Montreal has something to play for. And the Hurricanes and the Stars aren't going to roll over, right? They're very much on a collision course with some of the top spots in their respective conferences, but they have something to play for. Now, on the other side, Chicago, no. Winnipeg, no. San Jose, you're about to close out the road trip against San Jose. San Jose's in a spot where, in theory, these games sort of matter for them. They're at 70 points. They're 2 points back of a wild card spot. If San Jose wants to have a legitimate chance of chasing down the Kings, that's going to be the way to go. They're going to have to do whatever they can to close that gap with Los Angeles. And, by the way, they have to jump over Nashville and Seattle in doing so. So it might be considered a weak game or a weaker opponent, but it's still a team that has something to play for. Now, the Devils, So we have Devils, Jets, Blackhawks, and Caps. So on the Capitals side of thing, Capitals are right behind you, 2 points behind you. I think it's probably fair to say that ain't happening. So you could probably rule them out. The Devils are 6 points behind you. Feels like they are very much out of it as well. And then you look at Winnipeg and you look at Chicago. Chicago has no chance of doing anything out west. Winnipeg is like hanging on by a thread. They're 5 points out of a wild card spot. But like of all those teams, almost every single one of them has some kind of playoff stakes remaining. The only one that you could effectively rule out is Chicago. Everyone else on your schedule is either in a playoff spot or chasing down a wild card spot and has a somewhat realistic path to trying to make the playoffs. Somewhat realistic in very bold and italicized writing. So there's where you are right now. That's on strength of schedule. But then you have to look at the flip side of it too, right? And the flip side of it is, where are the Flyers right now when it comes to the draft lottery? And this is why I said, despite me being somebody who's long believed they need another top 5, top 7 pick or whatever in the final year of what I would consider a year that they would never outwardly admit that they'd be okay with getting a high pick, but this to me is the final year that they're theoretically okay with it, unless they're going to remove pieces in the offseason, which I just don't see. Here's where you are relative to everyone else. And we just talked about New Jersey and about Washington, San Jose. I've been saying for the longest time, you need to be somewhere around 11, right? 11, you could jump 10 spots up to number 1. Very small chance it happens. Do I see two teams making huge jumps like Utah did last year, like the Islanders did to go get Matthew Schaefer, who recorded his 50th point last night? No, I don't expect that to happen 2 years in a row. But as I've been saying for a long time, you kind of want to get into this like number 8 spot, right? If you get somewhere around number 8, and you do get jumped twice by two other teams who move up above you in the draft lottery, the lowest you could pick is 10th. And I still am a believer, even though it's an arbitrary number, top 10 to me is still a sweet spot. You could make the case there are like 4-ish players who are kind of in a tier of their own, and then maybe 5 through 11 or so in this draft. It's kind of like beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I would still like to have a choice between 1 or 2 of those players picking at 10, or one of, say, 3 or 4 of those players picking at number 8, then take whichever guy is left in that next group down. But I'm just a guy. Here's the problem, though. I don't see a feasible path. I don't. As somebody who has long been in favor of going and getting a better pick, I don't see it. I don't see the path. I can look at this, right? I can look at this, and I can very much acknowledge that a 5-point gap in the Met or a 6-point gap in the wild card is going to be a tough thing to make up with only 14 games remaining. I totally understand it. And yet I think that that is a more feasible path right now than taking a look at this and saying, oh yeah, there's a path to number 8. There's a path to the 8th best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick or getting moved up into the number 1 or number 2 spot in this draft. I just don't see it. I really don't. You right now have a 7-point advantage with 14 games remaining. Now, again, if Washington goes on a heater, all right, well, then maybe you've cleared one team. If New Jersey's 7-3-0 in their last 10 games. If New Jersey goes on a heater, all right, then maybe you're talking about being at number 12. Number 12 still doesn't allow you to move up to number 1. It would give you the flexibility to potentially move up to number 2. Well, that's cool. Do I think San Jose is going to go on a massive winning streak? If San Jose wants to make the playoffs out west, which it seems like Macklin Celebrini may will them to do, well then okay, maybe you get to number 11. Florida has no incentive of any kind to win games. Seattle, they are technically still in a playoff hopeful spot out west because the West around the wild card is pretty freaking dreadful. Like right now, just for context, in the Central Division, the Avs have 98 points, Dallas has 96, and the Wild have 90, right? In the Pacific Division, by comparison, 78, 77, 76 for Anaheim, Edmonton, and Vegas, respectively. That's a pretty massive drop-off. You're talking at least 90 points to be one of the three teams in the Central versus 78 to 76 in the Pacific Division. So technically, because of that second wild card spot, Seattle and Nashville and San Jose are all still sort of in the mix. If they go on a heater, okay. Then all of a sudden, maybe you look back at this draft lottery thing and you go, okay, Washington maybe, New Jersey maybe, San Jose maybe, Seattle maybe, Nashville maybe. That's where it ends. So like even if all that happens, and like let's just say Florida goes on an ultimate losing streak, they end at number 8, right? That means you're the Flyers. The Flyers would have to lose a lot of games, and they would end up at number 9. They would have a chance to get number 1 or the number 2 overall pick. They would insulate themselves from picking no later than 11th. Is that a great scenario? No, it's not. And so I have to tell you something. As much as I hate it, and I do, because I don't think this is good for a rebuild at all. I don't. I'll tell you right now, I think I would rather see the Flyers make the playoffs. I have been as much on board with tear this shit down, get as many elite players through the draft as you can, and actually do a real rebuild. Well, this was not a real rebuild. The best player they've drafted, or at least the guy who right now looks like the best player they've drafted over the last 4 or 5 years, now plays in Anaheim. He gone. He was a high pick, and he gone. Porter Martone, big Porter Martone guy. I believe that Martone will be a 30, 35, maybe even higher goal scorer in the NHL. I think he's got a hell of a shot. I want to believe in Porter Martone. You got one stud. Matvei Michkov, I want to believe, is going to have a bounce-back third season in the NHL. I'm still willing to pound the table and say stud. So you got 2 studs out of the rebuild. What is Jet Lachenko? I don't know. What is Jack Nesbitt? I don't know. You got Martone, you got Michkov, you got 2 wings. I will point out, and I know that it's very limited. I know that it is a very limited set of games. I totally get it. I know that the results at the NHL level when he's had the opportunity have been very mixed, to say the least. But if you look at what David Jiricek has done with the Phantoms since getting acquired from Minnesota, when you look at what that guy is able to do on a power play, and again, I get it, it's at the AHL level. But man, if that dude even comes close to realizing his potential at only 22 years old, if that dude puts it together, well, there, you got another top 6 pick. It's not one that you took. You took Gauthier, the pick before him, which, by the way, looks like a smart choice. If Jiricek comes up, and he can be a solid second-pair defenseman and quarterback one of your power play units, it's a hell of a get. We love Bobby Brink, but that's a hell of a get. I'm at a point right now where I look at it and I say, I think it's better for the Flyers to make the playoffs. Now, here's the part that we all kind of have to acknowledge, right? If we look at the tank, if we look at the current playoff standings, right? Either way, right? We'll do it again real quick. You look at this. They're at 14th. My thought all along is they probably finish around 93 points, then miss the playoffs by 3 points or so. If that happens, they're probably picking 14. Maybe they're picking 15. Not a lot of variance. I just do not see a scenario where over the last 14 games, they lose 10 regulation games, which I think they would have to do if they were going to try to move up to like number 9 in the draft lottery. I don't see it. I think right now, I mean, we could look at their schedule. I'd rather not, but like if we go back to the strength of schedule of it all, Dallas, they lose. Carolina, they lose. Montreal maybe is an overtime loss, 0-1. I think you win against Columbus, so 1-2-1. Detroit, I think you can win 2 of those games. So you're at 3. We'll go 3-2-2. Boston, lose in overtime, 3-2-3. Beat Chicago, 4-2-3. Winnipeg, 4-3-3. San Jose, I don't know, they're on a heater right now, 5-3-3. Devils, 5-3-4. And then Washington, 6-3-4. You still finish. So I missed a game in there somewhere. I did bad mental math. But you get the point. Like I'd still have them under 500 overall because I still count overtime and shootout losses as losses. I still think that you're probably a below 500 team, or maybe you finish right at like that 7-7 mark or whatever. But like I don't think that's enough for you to fall back as far as you would need to. So for better or worse, I'm kind of in the, all right, chase it down. If you're able to win enough games here and to secure enough points to make the playoffs, you ain't winning a first-round series. I don't see it. I don't think you're winning a first-round series. But if you make it into the playoffs and you can make a round of it and you can get playoff hockey back in Philadelphia and you can re-energize the fan base and maybe you can use that to make a pitch to a guy that's had Philadelphia on his no-movement list, then maybe the offseason gets a little bit more interesting. If you put a bit of fear into the heart of whoever you end up playing in the first round, does that open up the possibility of an Adam Fantilli or a Leo Carlson being open to getting an offer sheet and signing that offer sheet? Whether or not it's matched or not by Columbus or Anaheim respectively doesn't really matter. It's more of the, can you convince a guy to want to sign here? I'm officially now in team, I guess you go for the playoffs. Because here's the thing. Again, flip it. I see no viable path here. I see no viable path to doing any better than 9th in the draft lottery. Right? I see no better than a path to 9th. And that would require the bottom really falling out in the final 14 games, which would probably also mean something has gone horribly wrong with Rick Tocchet in this locker room, which they're not going to fire him. And if you've been hoping that they're going to fire Tocchet, they're not. So unless you want there to be Torts versus Cam York 2.0, which would be horrific for that group of young guys, go for the playoffs. It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters. I don't think you're going to move much out of this zone anyway. Have at it, guys. Go out there, earn it, get a playoff spot, put some fear into the heart of the opposition, go with God. It's kind of where I'm at. And I'm not saying they're going to make it. I think they'll still miss it by a few points, but that's where we're at. Miller Brad says 8-3-1 since the Olympics. I mean, I don't know what we're doing. It's insane. Like, it is kind of crazy. They've won both games so far on the West Coast swing with 1 to go. And I want to be clear, because I had somebody the other day over on Snow the Goalie that commented, Russ is just so negative. Say something positive. I don't say positive things just for fun, right? I don't say positive things and gaslight people into believing that this was done the right way. It wasn't. Like this ain't a rebuild. This ain't the way that you build a team. I don't see it, right? Like you still don't have a 1C, you don't have a 1D, you don't necessarily have a number 1 goalie. If you come out of a 3-year rebuild, and that's the case, the rebuild wasn't successful. It doesn't mean that you can't supplement, right? It doesn't mean that you can't supplement it with free agents and trades. And then maybe you come out of it and somebody goes, well, see, the rebuild did work. It depends. You have to expand it a little bit beyond just being able to draft really valuable assets that are the cornerstones of your team. I think that they half in, half out did it again, which doesn't work. It's kind of where you end up in this hockey purgatory state. But whatever. If they make the playoffs, I'll be thrilled. I would love to go down and cover this team in the playoffs. I would love for there to be playoff atmosphere at Xfinity Mobile Arena. It would make Many years of mediocre at best hockey worth it. I would love to go down and cover a team that enters the playoffs, obviously on a hot streak. If they make the playoffs, they are going to have to be one of the hottest teams in the NHL. And then you never know. Like, I'm not here to tell you that they could pull off a first-round upset. But weirder things have happened. Ultimately, this team is going to go about as far as Darth Vladar takes them. If Vladar goes on a total heater, like he has for much of the season, anything's possible. If you enter the playoffs and Vladar is holding the opposition to 2 goals a game, some nights only a single goal, you're going to win games. This team has a really hard time scoring. Can you imagine if the Flyers got their power play up from dog shit to like at least somewhat not horrible? You know how many games they would win? Like if you look at these final 14 games, if this Flyers power play were able to hit it like a 25% clip, a 22% clip, they probably could walk away with a good portion. So the 14 games, 28 points remaining. They could probably walk away with 21, 22 of those points if the power play could actually succeed. Vladar's been playing that well in net. And we do have to give a shout to Sam Ersson for last night because while he gave up multiple goals, when the shootout came around, dude was a bona fide stud. It's been one thing you've been able for the most part to hang your hat on is that Ersson can play well in the shootout. So kudos to him. I don't know. It's a very weird team. But we've seen a team make it in on the final day of the regular season. Anything could happen. All right, I'm going to go over to the comments here real quick. Let's see. Amy asks, didn't Meltzer say the draft dropped off after 3? I think he did. I seem to remember Kimmelman saying to me before, I don't remember if it was on the show or somewhere else, that there might be 5 players that are all kind of in a similar area. I think McKenna is like kind of in a class of his own, but maybe there are 2 players there and then 3 in a next tier and then it drops off. Chris Mack says, Friedman said they'll be the busiest team at the draft. Yeah, we'll see. Friedman says a lot of things. Some of them are right. Some of them are, talking points from, he's an information broker. MJ Bruno says NHL will gift Chicago another generational pick at the lottery just to drive us crazy. Maybe. Jim Grasso says they'll either sneak in or get that 15th pick. It's fine. They add Martone and Forster next year, add a few free agents or make a trade or 2, and they'll be in the playoffs next year. Yeah, I think they will be a playoff team next year. I thought this year they had a chance to be a playoff team, if for no other reason than if the goaltending was better than the disaster class it was last year. It would be kind of shocking if they didn't. I think they'll be in the playoffs next year. Martone, I expect to have a really strong performance. The crazy thing is going to be like, if Michigan State were to get upset in the tournament, and he gets to play 7 games here or something, that makes things very, very interesting. Nick Abe says, the owner has said they want to make the playoffs this year. Of course he does. He puts on the fan hat. He admits that. Like, he doesn't want to watch them lose. Is it the best thing for them? I don't know. Chris Mack says, they now got big assets to make trades. No, they don't. Let's see. See some stuff about Jet Lachenko. Joe Papel says, you're spot on, Russ. It's too late to lower the floor. Wasted opportunity to draft a stud. Go for the playoffs now. This is the problem with being in hockey purgatory is like now you are... I wouldn't say this is an exercise in futility because they have to play a bunch of the teams that are still above them. If they weren't playing against Detroit at all, if they weren't going to play Columbus again, or the Islanders again, I'd be like, exercise in futility. But they are playing teams that are ahead of them. So those are 4-point games each time. Let's see. Nihauleo? Is it Nihauleo? Yeah, let me know. Says, I love the Juracek trade. We didn't need a second-round pick plus for Bobby. We got a recent top 10 pick for a small third-line winger. Correct. We love Brink. Brink was a good dude, good player, good guy in the locker room, well-liked. The upside was third-line winger. Now, listen, if Bobby Brink somehow figures out how to be like a 33-goal scoring second-line wing, good on him. But I love that trade for the upside of Juracek. Let's see. B Condors here says number 14 pick. Here we come. Amy says, with the way Vladar has played this year, they were never going to be in those top spots. No one expected him to be that good. If Vladar had been, typical career backup level, they would probably be around the 6th spot right now in the draft lottery. I think that's how big of a difference he's made. And by the way, that's the difference of 11 points between where Winnipeg is at and where the Flyers are as of recording. Let's see. Joe Papel says second fewest regulation wins in the conference. That tells us first round elimination. 3-on-3 and shootouts don't exist in the playoffs. We'll see what it looks like. And I don't think you're wrong. I think the bigger issue is that they fall behind in games. If they were able to figure out a way to actually get ahead in a game, it would be swell. They start so many games in a 1-0 hole. Let's see. Vacant Alleyway says this team is a parody of themselves. I was supposed to go to both of these Cali games too, LOL. There was somebody who went to the California games, and they took a printout. They asked for permission, but they took a printout of the Quitter Gautier shirt that we have over on the shop.snowthegoalie.com. And this guy went around. Let me see if I could find it real quick. I have to go into the Snow the Goalie Twitter account. And I could show you guys because I meant to tweet this out. So it's a guy named Freddie Flyer. Freddie Flyer did some of the funniest stuff. Here we go. And apparently he doesn't think it went over particularly well in Anaheim. But this is just to give you an idea. This is a listener of Snow the Goalie. I don't know if he pays attention to this show at all. But guy over on Twitter, Freddie Flyer, he asked for permission to print this out on a poster. So he took our Quitter Gautier logo design that we have on shirts, and he printed that out, and he put that out at the game. But here's the best part. This is actually the one that this warms the cockles of my heart. He was down at ice level behind the goal, and he put the Quitter Gautier logo up on the glass pregame. He said he got a few pucks whizzed his way, so he doesn't think that the Ducks were too thrilled with it. But there you go. That is dedication to the cause. Went out there. I don't know if he lives out west or not, but we give a tip of the cap to Freddie Flyer for doing the Lord's work. All right. Let's see. MJ Bruno says, Russ, when you look at the Sens roster, which has very, very good top 6, and you see this Flyers roster with far less talent, would you argue Flyers are overachieving or Sens are underachieving? I think the Sens are underachieving, but they happen to add a guy there who underachieved a lot. So make of that what you will. I don't know. I also don't know how... If I tell you what I really feel, I'm going to have all the Giroux stands coming out of the woodwork again, whining and crying into their Claude Giroux pillows. So I don't need that. I will point out that, there's a bit of a theme with teams that he has been on. And he's 38 now, so it's not as if, you can expect, pure greatness from him. But I don't know. Ottawa's a weird team. All right, let's see. Tutty says, your point is logical. National media agree with Russ. The mushy middle is hard to get through. Correct. Ni Hao Leo says it's not that hard. All right, well, look, when it's all smashed together, it's I don't want to say it wrong. Gosh. All right, Unholy Hairdo 64 over on YouTube. Make sure you like the video, share the video, subscribe. Thanks for being here. Says, is it too early to get excited about Juracek? He was garbage in Minnesota, yet has 2 goals and 4 apples since joining the Phantoms. No, I don't think it's too early to get excited. I think it's too early to get excited about trying to translate that from the AHL to the NHL. I know that the Flyers have had this conversation about, when do you bring him up? I think that they would be much more apt to bring him up if they fall out of the playoff hunt. Do you add a guy like that at the end of the regular season if you're 2 points back with 3 games to play or something? I don't know. Do you call that guy up for a playoff run? just based on like what I think he could do to help the power play, I think you do. And it's not as if he hasn't played in the NHL before. But you got to be really, really careful at trying to like extrapolate the numbers that you see there and then apply them to the NHL. Chris got offended because I said they don't have big assets. Don't have big assets. So Owen Tippett, Tyson Forster, Noah Cates, Risto, TK, Sanheim, York. Yeah, okay. So Chris, I'll say this slowly. Okay. Owen Tippett is not a massive asset. He's a guy that would have teams interested. What exactly do you think you're getting for Owen Tippett? Tyson Forster is a legitimate asset. He is. He would have been a very key part to that Quinn Hughes package. So Tyson Forster, important. Though, injuries are becoming a little bit of a concern with Tyson Forster. In my mind, they're at least you got to show that you could stay healthy for a season next year. Noah Cates, not a ton of value. Can play center, can play wing. Nobody's going to knock you, like bowl you over with an incredible offer for Noah Cates. Risto, I mean, I don't know how else to laugh. Risto's stock was the highest it's ever been coming out of the Olympics. Did a deal get done? No. And based off of a couple of things that have been kind of going around behind the scenes, there wasn't a sensational offer on the table. So no, I don't think Risto has a ton of value left with a year left on his deal. Maybe we get to see playoff Risto, and maybe they move him in the offseason because he's just such a good playoff player. Konechny and Sanheim both have no movement clauses. How much is a team willing to give you for Travis Konechny if he waives that no trade? I have no idea. Sanheim would be an asset, but like, again, no movement clause. So, York? I don't know what a team is giving you for Cam York. I don't think it's going to be anything like particularly enticing. So like, no, I don't think those are like great assets. I think you got like a couple in there that are interesting. All right. J Mez says Tippett has become untradeable. We got greedy with Risto offers. York hasn't developed. York is wildly inconsistent. So there you go. Video guy Amadeo crying into his Claude Giroux pillow right now. I knew somebody would be. Says your hate for Giroux is unwarranted. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. I've aired my grievances about Claude Giroux as a Flyer. I don't need to do it again. Let's see. I just saw Chris Freed trying to get me going, saying "speak yourself" or "speak your truth" on Giroux. Nope, I've done it before. Then I get all the Giroux stands who come out and they cry and they whine and they yell and they scream. J-Miss asks, have you seen the rumor we went after Patrick Laine at the deadline? I saw that and I don't know if it's true. And furthermore, I don't know why you would make that deal unless you were going to get a pick along with him because it's a very painful contract to take on. So, all right. Let's see. Anything else? Nick Abe says Giroux was a good player. Got wasted here. Yeah. Sure. I'm not doing this again. AJ asks, Russ, are you implying G wasn't the best captain at the time? Yeah, he wasn't. He fucking wasn't. I don't know why you people, I don't know why. You know what? I made this comparison before. I'll stand by it. Claude Giroux and Allen Iverson, both players that were the best on many of their respective teams in Philadelphia. Both had GMs who were incapable of building legitimately great teams around them. However, Allen Iverson won an MVP. I'm not even a big Allen Iverson fan. Allen Iverson won an MVP. Allen Iverson single-handedly willed a team into the NBA Finals. Right. Allen Iverson is an incredibly selfish and inefficient player whose style was grating on teammates, and he also had a very incompetent GM who couldn't build the team around him. But he did get them to the promised land once. Claude Giroux did not do that. Now, granted, there's a big difference between basketball and hockey and the impact that one player has. Did the Flyers go to a Stanley Cup final with Claude Giroux on the team? Yes. Was he really a big part of why? No. Was he a central focus of why? No. And in the years that followed, yes, different GMs, different front offices. Did they do a great job of building a team? No. Were there seasons or postseasons where you would say Claude Giroux has now put the team on his back and gotten you back to a conference final, gotten you to a Stanley Cup? No. He didn't. And by the way, he goes to Florida, right? Forces the Flyers' hand. Could have gone to Colorado, won a Stanley Cup. Goes to Florida. But Russ, Florida was also a top team. They were. Colorado was the better team. You know what Colorado did? They won the Stanley Cup. You know what Florida didn't win the Stanley Cup. Claude Giroux leaves. Florida wins 2 Stanley Cups. Giroux goes to Ottawa. Where's Ottawa? Kind of stuck where Ottawa usually is. Again, very good player. I'm not taking that away from him. Very good player. But the way that some Flyers fans talk about Claude Giroux is as if he was like on par with Sidney Crosby. Just because Peter Laviolette once said that Claude Giroux is the best player in the world does not make it true. They're not even close. But the way that people revere Claude Giroux, they act as though if you put Claude Giroux on those Penguins teams, that those Penguins teams are winning all those cups. They're not. If Sidney Crosby had been on this team in place of Claude Giroux, Sidney Crosby at least gets the Flyers to a Stanley Cup on his own shoulders. Because they're not the same kind of player. They're not the same level player. They're not even close. Okay, I'm done. Okay. And there are people who believe or believed that those two guys were on the same level for a while. They weren't. Insane. Okay, now I want to get off hockey. No offense to hockey. We love hockey, but we're getting off hockey. We have to give a real quick shout out. This was not on the show rundown because I had to put the show rundown together last night before the games out west were being played. But we do have to give a legitimate shout out to VJ Edgecombe, who killed it last night for the Sixers. We're not going to spend a lot of time here on the Sixers, but VJ Edgecombe became one of 2 rookies in Sixers history to score more than 35 points and record 10 or more assists in a game, joining the aforementioned Allen Iverson. He had a career-high 38 points against Sacramento to go along with 7 rebounds, 11 assists, and 2 steals. He hit 3 shots from beyond the arc. The one thing that we continue to come back to, time and time again, right? The thing that we always come back to, VJ Edgecombe is going to need to take another step forward while Tyrese Maxey's out, while Joel Embiid is out, while Paul George is suspended. And if that were to come to pass, and if he were to, try to put the team on his back, things could get really interesting. Now, one thing that you have to keep an eye on are those Eastern Conference standings, because they are quite interesting. We've talked all year about how the Eastern Conference in the NHL is full of parity, the Eastern Conference in the NBA is full of parity, right? The Sixers are right now in the 9th seed in the Eastern Conference at 38 and 32. And you may say to yourself, Russ, that means they're dead. They're not. They still have 12 games left. The reason I say they're not dead is because Toronto right now is in the 5th seed. Toronto is 39 and 29. The Sixers are a mere 2 games back of Toronto. If you want to look at where the Hawks and the Magic are, the Sixers are a mere half game behind them for the 6th or 7th seed, respectively. That is how insane this Eastern Conference is. That is how cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs things have gotten. So the Sixers are currently on the outside looking in. They have no shot at keeping that pick, right? Like their pick is going to go out to OKC, who desperately needed it. If you're the Sixers, you got to do as much as you can to go all in on trying to make the playoffs and hope that you get back a truly motivated Paul George, an absolute bona fide killer Tyrese Maxey, and a healthy Joel Embiid. That's where we're at. Paul George is back soon, right? Like I think they have, is it 2 games left or 3 games left before Paul George is back? I mean, it's close. I think they're really, really close to getting back Paul George from the 25-game suspension. I don't remember which game it was that he missed. I think they have 2 games left until PG's back. They play at Utah, and then they host Jared McCain and the Oklahoma City Thunder on Monday. I think Paul George is back next Wednesday against Chicago, which is hilarious to me. So you get Paul George back. If VJ Edgecombe can ride that wave of momentum coming off a career-high 38 points, all of a sudden, you'll have Russ Joy back in there on believing in the Sixers again. Now, you want to talk about people believing in things. You want to talk about people who are resolute in their belief about things. I'll tell you somebody who doesn't believe in things. I'll tell you somebody who doesn't believe in WIP, man. Notice we're going a little John Gruden here, man. Because there's a clip going around. John Gruden talking to Lane Johnson. And you may have heard there's a little bit of controversy going on around WIP, around Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio, man. You got Angelo Cataldi going on a show with Howard Eskin, man. You're talking about 2 guys that were absolute linchpins over at WIP, man. We're talking about a guy who held down the afternoon calling people dimwits and idiots and Eskin. You had a guy who was carnival barking in the morning, like Angelo Cataldi, man. Well, I'm gonna play some. John Gruden had Lane Johnson over on a podcast. I want you to take a goosey gander here real quick, man. I'm serious, man. We're going to get Lane Johnson. A little back and forth here about WIP. All right, let's go out to Gruden.
Put on tape against the Rams. He should be in jail for that. Some of that was unbelievable.
When you have like elite tackle length and you put that in the phone booth of a guard, his extension able to pass off stunts was so unique. And him and Landon, what they were doing
my God.
they got up to the second level pretty fast.
The Eagles,
All right, so here you go. This is where it happens, man. This is where Gruden's going to drop it on you. He's going to drop a little thought about radio.
coach there for 3 years. I was offensive coordinator. I listened to the WIP radio.
Did you listen to that radio?
Oh, yeah.
They had some good stuff on there?
Yeah, they talk. I was Gruden.
There you go. Lane Johnson got some good stuff on there.
I was like their favorite son for a while until we started losing. Then that one guy calls in. He says, "John Gruden, if his IQ was 1 point less, he'd be a plant. The guy's an idiot."
That's a compliment, Philly.
Yeah.
That's a compliment.
But I love the Eagles because just my history there. I had my son there, and anyways.
So there you go. Lane Johnson. It's a little bit of side eye, a little bit of shade at WIP. Now, one thing that I can guarantee is going to continue to get more and more conversation over on WIP that I flat out refuse to buy further into is the A.J. Brown stuff. I will tell you that I am finding a little bit of it exhausting. I have long been on the side of A.J. Brown, but I do have to tell you that, I'm starting to reach my frustration max. I'm about to, kind of hit the ceiling of frustration that I could deal with. Because all offseason, you've had A.J. Brown kind of winking and nodding at the Patriots. Patriots have been involved on conversations on the trade market for A.J. Brown. Most notably, there was the podcast appearance he made with Julian Edelman where he said, "We're all Patriots," or Edelman did, and A.J. Brown winked and then said, "I'm just kidding, don't blow this up into a thing." But there was a clip going around social media of A.J. Brown talking about a Super Bowl memory. And this is where you even get somebody like me who's very much been on the side of everybody just shut the hell up about A.J. Brown getting traded. Here you go.
This is A.J. Brown. I'm here at CAA Suite. Answer some quick questions for you all. A game that I'll never forget is Super Bowl against...
Super Bowl? Oh, which of the Super Bowls, A.J.? The one that you lost against the Chiefs? The one that you beat the Chiefs?
The New England Patriots and the New York Giants. And
I'm sorry, what? Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
That I'll never forget is Super Bowl against the New England Patriots and the New York Giants. And growing up was a big Patriots fan, and the helmet catch sealed the game, and I cried all night.
What?
The advice that I would give myself
is
just to be patient and to be present.
Patient or present.
So much
Love
is
that.
out of your control.
Okay, so we're fine there, home. We're going to keep skipping.
Song or album that I would listen to.
Don't care about the song or the album. Don't care.
Shout out to Lauryn Hill.
All right, guys, I don't mean to poo-poo things here. A game you never forget. I don't know. I got to think that if like you've reached the pinnacle of your sport, winning the Super Bowl maybe is a game you never forget. But he went with the Super Bowl, and then he kind of trolled there with the pause, and then Patriots Giants and the Tyree helmet catch. I got to tell you, he might be trolling, right? He might be. I don't like that. I don't mess with that. I don't like that. There are too many winks and nods and all that lovely stuff to the Patriots. It's one thing to troll the media. If the idea here is that A.J. Brown is just trying to troll WIP and trying to troll Diana Rossini and trying to troll media, okay, fine. But you're actually kind of pissing off the fan base now. You're starting to make people, even like me, who have very much been pro A.J. Brown, go like, what are we doing here, dude? Like, why? Why? I don't like it. That doesn't sit well with me. I saw a thing also going around that he was working out with Kevin Byard, right? The safety. And so people are trying to piece that together because Kevin Byard is now with the Patriots as well. So this image was going around social media and everybody's kind of losing their mind about it. Oh, he's working out with the Patriots safety. What does that mean? I will remind people that these guys have been teammates together in Philadelphia and previously in Tennessee. So I have to imagine that there's like a pretty decent friendship there. I don't look at that and go, oh, that's the full proof you need that he's going to the Patriots. But like, people wanted to jump all over that. Here's my issue, right? And it just comes back to something really simple. If you're the Eagles, you have all this cap space. I think they right now have the 5th most cap space or so. I think it's like the 5th most cap space in the NFL. There's nothing for you to do now, though. Like if you really were going to move off of A.J. Brown, I think you would have gone after a guy like Mike Evans. I think you would have tried to get like another big body receiver to line up opposite of Devontae Smith. Then maybe you draft your slot guy. It feels like the Hollywood Brown signing was for slot. If Hollywood Brown is going to be your A.J. Brown replacement, I'm not nearly as bullish on that move. So, I don't know. We'll see what they also get, right? We'll see what kind of compensation they get back if they do trade A.J. Brown. But again, we don't live in the world where we constantly just sit around and, bemoan the idea of them making a move or not. One guy that we do have to have a really brief conversation about, I guess, is Andy Dalton. So Andy Dalton ends up with the Eagles. It feels like that is probably a move where Tanner McKee is going to be moved, maybe, around the draft. So this happened on Monday after we were done the show, but the Eagles got Andy Dalton for a 2027 7th-round pick. Does that move the needle? No. Is that a good guy to have in the locker room? Is that a good backup quarterback? Is that a good backup option? Yeah, it does. It is. I don't think it really moves the needle that much. Okay. I got to double check on my rundown what else we still needed to get to today, because I know there are a couple of Phillies-related things that I wanted to get to. There was a thing that did come up, and it was an Angelo Cataldi thing, and it was on he flamed Reuben Frank real bad. I mean, he 1,000% ripped Reuben Frank. It was one of the most painful takedowns I have seen of somebody in this market in a long time. And it was almost at the level where, like, you sit back and go, holy shit, Angelo, was that totally necessary? So he went over on Pattison, on their podcast with Missinelli, Anthony Sanfilippo. And Cataldi was quoted as saying, if you want an example of somebody who went to the dark side, who was really doing hardcore journalism and is now a glorified PR agent, read Reuben Frank pretty much any day. Ask him to give you some stats on Sirianni, and by the end, you'll think Sirianni is better than Vince Lombardi. He said some other stuff too, but it was pretty brutal. He also said of Reuben Frank's coverage, you would think they just won 4 or 5 straight Super Bowls. They just blew a season because they had the wrong offensive coordinator, and that, to me, is the headline of the 2025 season. So, Cataldi went after a lot of people. I mean, he once again effectively said that every beat writer in Philadelphia sucks right now, Jeff McClain was the closest thing to what he remembers being a beat writer, but he even said he thinks McClain has gone soft. So there you go. You just Angelo Cataldi being kind of worried and worried about maybe his legacy here. I don't know. It's a very strange thing that he's doing. So that was the Cataldi of it all. We have a couple of things really quick on the Phils. So it's hard to know what to make of the team itself, but I will say that watching Adolis Garcia yesterday just crush a ball. I mean, like painfully crush a ball. It gives me a little bit of hope, right? Because you look at this guy and you look at the kind of power he can generate. That swing is a thing of absolute beauty. And as we know, I can't show the clips here because if I do, YouTube gets very upset. But Adolis Garcia had a swing that you need to see against Tampa Bay. He absolutely tore the cover off a ball to left center field. And you know that he's going to be a better defensive outfielder than Nick Castellanos was. The dude is absolutely jacked. I want to believe in Adolis Garcia. I'm not going to tell you he's going to hit 35 home runs. I don't actually know what his production is going to look like at all. But man, if you can get somebody to provide some legitimate right-handed power in this lineup, and maybe that's the guy who hits behind Bryce Harper, not bad. I don't know if that's what they're going to do right now, but that could theoretically make sense at some point if he becomes a consistent power threat from the right side of the plate. But there are other guys that I kind of sit back and I think to myself, this is interesting. So Adolis Garcia, definitely interesting. I'm not willing to say that makes this a successful offseason for Dave Dombrowski because I don't think it was. But Andrew Painter on Monday went back out to the Hill and he went another 4 innings of one-hit baseball, allowed no runs, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk. Threw 52 pitches, 34 of them were strikes. He had 9 swing and misses, and his max velocity was nearly 97 miles per hour. It feels like the guy that the Phillies have been so high on, that they have ruled an untouchable for a very long time. It feels like that guy is certainly on his way back. I mean, remember, he was coming off of a serious surgery, and last year, the results in the minors were not great to say the least. But it feels like he's back on one. And if Painter's going to be this potential stud, this potential number 1 down the line, if he can find any semblance of that guy and be a consistent fixture in this rotation, it's going to be huge. There's another guy who's in this rotation that I think is going to be gigantic as well. Can we have a moment to just acknowledge that Jesus Luzardo looks like a bona fide Cy Young candidate? And it feels like now there are people that cover this sport certainly more intently than I do, where it's their main focus. Luzardo's been fantastic. So Luzardo's last start was on, when was the 17th? Was that Sunday? Let's say 20, 19, 18, 17. Tuesday? Tuesday seems about right? It was Tuesday. Luzardo pitched 5 innings, allowed 5 hits, no runs, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, 77 pitches thrown, 49 of them were strikes. His maximum velocity was over 98.5 miles per hour. There are people on the national stage now talking about Luzardo being a legitimate Cy Young candidate. If you remember back to a season ago, early in the season, Christopher Sanchez was in the conversation. Ranger Suarez was kind of in the conversation. Jesus Luzardo was in the conversation until he hit that rough stretch where people thought that he might have been tipping pitches. So Luzardo looks like a stud. Painter looks really good. Nola is coming off a great World Baseball Classic, and don't look now, but Zach Wheeler, everybody's talking about it being like at some point in April reemergence for Zach Wheeler. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. That rotation, okay, we can believe in it. That's all very good. I feel pretty damn good about it. Right? And we'll go with IROC Philly over here. Right? Kevin and IROC Philly. Wheeler, Sanchez, Luzardo, Painter, Nola could be the best 5-man rotation in baseball. It could be. It could be. If the real key here, if Luzardo is that good or Painter is pretty close to that good, then all of a sudden that does make up for the Ranger Suarez sized hole in your rotation. Now, again, we won't know until the postseason whether or not that was a good or bad idea to let him walk to Boston. But I will say there's one other thing, right? Bryson Stott has had a hell of a spring. I would like to believe that for Bryson Stott's sake, this is more than just a small sample size. Stott has been hitting really, really well in spring training. I think he's still over 370 at the plate. If he can be a consistent fixture in this lineup, just getting on base, doesn't need to crush for power. If he can just get on base, it'd be a big win for this team. Dombrowski is going to take like the most egotistical victory lap. If Stott ends up delivering, if Garcia ends up delivering, if Painter does well, he's going to be insufferable. And I would argue that a lot of that is just from his own inaction. All right, so those are the Phillies. Was there something else I wanted to get to? Let me think for a second. Russ, was there something? Oh, yeah, there was. The thing to be outraged about. And the reason that we're ending with it is because I want it to piss you off. And I want you to tweet at the Phillies. I want you to reach out to ticket reps at the Phillies. I want everybody to be on the Phillies' ass about this. The Phillies have done something truly, truly terrible. And at some point, you have to have a question about whether or not it is the right thing to go all in on revenue. And I get it. If you're a team, you want to maximize every bit of profitability in your stadium. I get it. But for those who missed it, I want you to be just as angry about this as I am. A fixture out in left field has always been Harry the Case, dedicated to Harry Kalas. It is a fixture of Citizens Bank Park. And I know that the lower level, like rebrander, but that banner out there, Harry the Case, out in left field, has been a fixture of that stadium since opening. And that is a true reminder of the most iconic voice in the history of Philadelphia. I don't think there's any other announcer who even comes close. I know that there have been some great announcers in Philadelphia. Harry Kalas is on a totally different level. The only person even in baseball, I think, who comes close to comparing, you'd put him in the conversation with Vin Scully. You want to put Joe Morgan in there? Joe Morgan is very good. But Harry Kalas is this iconic voice of this city. And they have gotten rid of Harry the Case. And instead, they've replaced it with Ghost Energy Deck. Now, I'm sorry, okay? I'm really, really sorry to Ghost. I have no idea what Ghost Energy is. You can also point that kind of sounds somewhat insensitive that it's Ghost Energy is replacing the late announcer. But Ghost Energy taking that spot, I don't even blame them. It's a great spot, right? It's right below the scoreboard. Everybody's always looking at the scoreboard. Ghost Energy. I don't wish any ill will upon Ghost Energy. I hope that they have a record year of sales, right? But if you're the Phillies, how do you let this happen? How do you look at that and say, that's fine. There's a statue. I saw somebody on Twitter go, oh, well, the press box is named after Harry Kalas. Whoop-de-fucking-do. All right? How many of you are going to go find the press box at Citizens Bank Park and go think about Harry Kalas? How many? Oh, he's on the Wall of Fame. Cool. So is Mike Lieberthal. He's got a statue. That's great. I mean, cool. Love Harry Kalas. You guys can let me know in the comments. You can let me know over on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. Let me know if I'm out of line. I don't think I am. Harry Kalas deserves a little bit more of a presence in that park, and them getting rid of Harry the Case, to me, is really, really, truly sad. And it is like yet another reminder of the way that people just sell out for the dollar. But we don't do that here at the Russ Joy Show yet. We don't do that at the Russ Joy Show, so still free. Do me a favor if you haven't done so already. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. I will talk to each and every one of you on Monday. But until then, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy. You knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to all of you on Monday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.